Her real name disappeared from all records in 1967. Even in CIA classified files, she existed only as codename SIREN. 12 Soviet generals, 4 KGB colonels, 2 Eastern Bloc ministers, and 1 Politburo member. All compromised, all destroyed, some executed. Then she did the unthinkable. She fell in love with her target, a KGB handler sent to turn her. They vanished together, taking secrets that could topple governments on both sides. The CIA hunted them for 28 years, the KGB for 31. They found her corpse in 2014 in a trailer park outside Reno, Nevada. She was 74 years old. Beside her body, a laptop, encrypted files, and a handwritten note. They taught us to seduce. They never taught us how to stop. This is the story of the woman who weaponized intimacy, then chose love over country, and paid for that choice with 3 decades of running. If you're loving the content, make sure to subscribe right now so you don't miss us in your recommendations. We upload new exciting videos every day. Thank you for watching. Let's get into it. Las Vegas, Nevada, July 4th, 1960. Desert Inn Casino, 11:47 p.m. 22-year-old Catherine "Cat" Morrison dealt blackjack to a table of drunk conventioners from Omaha and tried not to think about the Stanford acceptance letter sitting in a drawer back home in Bakersfield. Full scholarship, political science, international relations. Her ticket out of the San Joaquin Valley and away from everything she'd spent her life trying to escape. But Stanford cost more than tuition, room and board, books, living expenses. She'd calculated it would take 3 years of dealing cards to save enough. 3 years in this polyester uniform, 3 years of cigarette smoke and wandering hands, 3 years watching drunk insurance salesmen lose their mortgages on 17 when the dealer showed a 6. "Hit me," slurred the man at third base. He was 50-ish, wedding ring, loosened tie, that look they all got around midnight, desperation mixed with delusion. Cat flipped his card. Queen. Bust. "God damn it," he muttered, sliding another stack of chips forward. "You're too pretty to be this cold-hearted, sweetheart." Cat smiled, the empty casino smile she'd perfected over 18 months. Warm enough to keep them playing, distant enough to avoid trouble. "Just dealing the cards, sir." "Yeah, well, how about you deal me your phone number with the next hand?" "Against house rules," she said smoothly, dealing the next round. King showing. The drunk at third base groaned. She'd learned early that beauty was currency in a place like Vegas. The showgirls in their feathers and sequins, the cocktail waitresses in their short skirts, even the dealers, they were all part of the spectacle, part of what kept the money flowing. But unlike most of the girls, Cat had kept herself separate, untouchable. She had plans that didn't involve becoming another cautionary tale about the girl who thought she could handle Vegas. Her shift ended at 2 a.m. She clocked out, changed out of the uniform, walked to the employee cafeteria for her usual post-shift coffee. The place was nearly empty, just a couple of janitors and one woman sitting alone at a corner table. The woman didn't belong. That was Cat's first thought. Wrong clothes, expensive suit, completely wrong for Vegas. Wrong energy, calm, focused, watching. And she was reading the Wall Street Journal at 2 a.m. in a casino cafeteria. Cat poured her coffee, intending to ignore her, but the woman spoke. "Catherine Morrison?" Cat's hand stopped halfway to her mouth. Nobody here knew her full name. The name tag said Cat. The personnel file said Catherine M. She'd been careful about that. She turned slowly. "Do I know you?" "Not yet." The woman smiled, professional, practiced. "My name is Evelyn Cross. I'm a recruiter for a specialized program. May I have 5 minutes of your time?" "I'm not interested in switching casinos. I'm not recruiting for casinos. Please, sit. What I'm offering is significantly more interesting than dealing cards to drunk businessmen." Something in her tone, authority mixed with genuine interest, made Kat sit. She'd learned to trust her instincts about people. This woman was dangerous, but not in the way the drunk conventioners were dangerous. This was a different kind of threat entirely. You scored 1,480 on your SATs, Evelyn said without preamble. Near perfect verbal, 740 math. Stanford accepted you with full academic scholarship for fall 1960. You're planning to defer for 3 years to save money for living expenses. You speak fluent Spanish from growing up in Bakersfield's Mexican neighborhoods. You speak conversational Russian because your maternal grandmother, Elena Volkov, was a white Russian émigré who fled the Bolsheviks in 1919 and insisted you learn the language. You read Dostoevsky and Tolstoy in the original. You have what psychologists call hyperthymesia, highly superior autobiographical memory. You remember faces, conversations, details that most people forget. And you're working here because your stepfather drinks away your mother's paycheck and you refuse to let that be your future. Kat felt ice water replace blood in her veins. Who the hell are you? I told you, a recruiter. The United States government has a program for young women with your specific skill set. Linguistics, intelligence, eidetic memory, poise, beauty. We're looking for cultural attachés, people who can move in diplomatic circles abroad, gather intelligence, serve their country during a critical time in history. You mean spy? I mean intelligence analyst with social responsibilities, cultural liaison. You'd finish your education first, fully funded by us, no debt. Then overseas placement. Moscow, Prague, Warsaw, Budapest. Places where a smart, beautiful young American woman can access circles our male operatives can't penetrate. Places where the Cold War is actually being fought. Kat looked at the business card Evelyn slid across the table. No agency name, no official seal, just a phone number and E-Cross, Federal Recruitment Services. This is CIA, Kat said flatly. Evelyn didn't confirm or deny. Instead, this is an opportunity to use your natural gifts for something that matters. Right now, the world stands on the brink of nuclear war. What you could learn in Moscow, the people you could access, the intelligence you could gather, it could prevent that war. It could save American lives, potentially millions of them. And what exactly would I have to do? Sleep with Russians for state secrets? Evelyn's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Approval, maybe. She appreciated directness. You'd do whatever the mission requires. We'd train you extensively. Languages, diplomatic protocol, intelligence gathering techniques, personal security, counter-surveillance. Sometimes assignments involve developing personal relationships with targets. Sometimes they don't. But you would always be in control. You decide your boundaries. You decide how far any interaction goes. We're not the Soviets. We don't coerce our operatives. Kat laughed, sharp, bitter. Right, because the government has such a great track record respecting women's boundaries. You're right to be skeptical. Evelyn leaned forward. Let me be completely honest with you, Catherine. This work is dangerous. It's morally ambiguous. It will require you to lie, to manipulate, to use your appearance and intelligence to exploit human weaknesses. It will change you in ways you can't predict. And there's no glory in it. Everything you accomplish will be classified for 50 years minimum. You'll never be able to tell anyone what you really did. So why would I agree? Because you're already being hunted. Evelyn's voice dropped, became almost gentle. Smart women, beautiful women, we're prey in this world. Men will use you whether you work for us or not. Your stepfather already proved that, didn't he? The police reports your mother never filed. The reason you moved out at 17, the real reason you chose Vegas, far enough from Bakersfield that he can't show up drunk at your door. Kat's hands clenched around her coffee cup. How do you know about... We know everything, Catherine. We've been watching you for 6 months. You're exactly what we're looking for. Brilliant, beautiful, damaged enough to understand how predators think, but strong enough to turn that damage into power. Evelyn pulled out a folder, slid it across the table. I'm offering you the chance to stop being prey, to become the hunter instead, to have real power over the men who think they can control you, to make predators afraid of you. Kat opened the folder. Inside, her Stanford acceptance letter, her birth certificate, her high school transcripts, photos of her stepfather stumbling out of a bar. Everything. You've been investigating me. Recruiting you. There's a difference. Evelyn stood. Think about it. You have my number. But understand, this offer expires in 72 hours. After that, we move on to other candidates. You go back to dealing blackjack and saving nickels for Stanford. And your stepfather keeps knowing where you work. She left. Kat sat alone with the folder and a decision that would define the rest of her life. 71 hours later, Kat made the call. She'd spent 3 days thinking it through from every angle, researched what she could about CIA recruitment, which was almost nothing. Talked to exactly nobody, because who could she trust with this? In the end, it came down to one question. What did she want her life to be? Option A, 3 years dealing cards, then Stanford, then maybe State Department or academia if she was lucky. Safe, predictable, the American dream her mother had wanted for her. Option B, whatever Evelyn Cross was offering. Dangerous, unpredictable, but powerful, real. She called the number. Miss Morrison, Evelyn answered on the first ring. I'm pleased to hear from you. I have conditions. I'd be disappointed if you didn't. My mother doesn't know about this. She can't know. If something happens to me, she gets a story she can believe. Car accident, whatever. Not the truth. Agreed. And I want it in writing that I can walk away during training. No consequences, no harassment, no mysterious accidents. Agreed. Anything else? Kat thought about Stanford, about the life she was about to walk away from, about whether she'd regret this choice in 10 years. When do I start? Tomorrow. Pack light. You won't need most of what you own where you're going. November 1960, Williamsburg, Virginia. The colonial mansion looked like a museum. White columns, manicured gardens, the kind of place tourists photographed. A historical marker out front read, Private Property, Carter Plantation, 1781. Locals called it the farm. Nobody explained why. Kat arrived with 9 other women, ages ranging from 19 to 26, all attractive, all highly educated, all speaking multiple languages. A brunette from Yale, a redhead from Berkeley, a blonde from Georgetown. Different backgrounds, different stories, one commonality. They'd all said yes to Evelyn Cross. The orientation was in the main parlor. Evelyn stood before them, no longer in her recruiter persona. Now she was program director, and her warmth had been replaced with something harder. Welcome to what we're calling Project SIREN. You'll never know if that's an acronym or just someone's idea of a joke. Doesn't matter. What matters is why you're here. She clicked on a slide projector. Images appeared on the wall. Soviet military parades, Kremlin officials, maps of Eastern Europe. The Cold War isn't cold. It's the hottest conflict in human history. It's just being fought with espionage instead of bombs. The Soviets have KGB agents embedded throughout the Western world. We have CIA agents embedded throughout the Eastern Bloc. Both sides are trying to recruit assets, steal secrets, gain advantage. And both sides have learned something interesting. Beautiful women can access places and people that men cannot. Another click. Photos of women, some Kat recognized from history books. Mata Hari, Cynthia. Women who'd used seduction as espionage. The KGB has been training female operatives for this exact purpose since the 1930s. They call them swallows, women who are taught to seduce, manipulate, extract information through personal relationships. They're devastatingly effective.
We've lost dozens of assets to Soviet swallow operations. Good men, compromised because they fell in love with the wrong woman.
Evelyn's eyes swept across the room. We're starting our own program. You 10 are the first class. By the time you graduate, you will be as effective as any Soviet swallow. More effective, because you'll have something they don't. Genuine freedom to choose your methods. Soviet swallows are coerced, threatened, blackmailed into service. You're volunteers. That makes you dangerous in ways they can't predict. A hand raised. The Yale brunette, name tag reading Patricia. What exactly are we volunteering for? Evelyn didn't sugarcoat it. You're volunteering to use every tool at your disposal. Intelligence, charm, beauty, sexuality, if necessary, to gather intelligence from enemy targets. You'll be posted overseas as cultural attachés. Your real job will be identifying vulnerable Soviet or Eastern Bloc officials and developing them as intelligence sources. Sometimes that means friendship, sometimes romance, sometimes more. You decide your boundaries, but understand, the more you're willing to do, the more valuable you become. So we're prostitutes with diplomatic passports, another woman said, the Berkeley redhead name tag reading Susan. No, Evelyn's voice went sharp. Prostitutes sell sex for money. You'll be trading access and intimacy for intelligence that saves American lives. There's a difference. If you can't see that difference, you should leave now. Nobody left. Good. Training starts tomorrow at 0600. For the next 6 months, you will become fluent in languages, protocol, tradecraft, and personal interaction techniques. You will learn to read people better than they read themselves. You will learn to make anyone, man or woman, want to tell you their secrets. And you will learn to do all of this while keeping yourself psychologically intact. She paused. Some of you won't make it through training. The psychological toll is significant. If you break, we'll send you home with a cover story and a confidentiality agreement. No shame in that. This work isn't for everyone. Kat listened and felt something cold and certain settle in her chest. This was exactly what she wanted, even though she hadn't known it until now. Power, control, the ability to make predators afraid instead of being afraid of them. She would graduate. She was certain of that. The training was systematic psychological reconstruction. Days began at 6 a.m. with physical conditioning, running, self-defense, weapons training. You need to be able to protect yourselves, Evelyn explained. Most of you won't need these skills, but the ones who do will be glad they have them. Mornings were languages. Kat already had Russian and Spanish. She added Czech and Polish. The instructors were native speakers, often defectors themselves, who taught not just grammar but cultural nuances. How to tell a Moscow accent from a Leningrad accent. What jokes were safe to make in Prague versus Warsaw. How to drink vodka properly at a Georgian Supra. Afternoons were tradecraft, surveillance detection, dead drops, brush passes, how to photograph documents with a Minox camera, how to conceal microfilm in lipstick tubes, hollow coins, cigarette packs, how to spot a tail, how to lose a tail. But evenings? Evenings were when the real training happened. Week 3. Introduction to Personal Dynamics. Evelyn stood before them in what they'd started calling the honey trap classroom, a space designed to look like a luxury hotel suite, complete with bedroom, sitting area, minibar. Everything you thought you knew about seduction is wrong, she began. You think it's about sex? It's about control. You think it's about beauty? It's about making someone believe they're the most fascinating person in your universe for however long you need them to be. She walked through the suite, touching surfaces. Real seduction is 90% psychology, 10% physical. You need to understand what your target wants, not sexually, emotionally. Are they lonely? Give them connection. Are they insecure? Give them validation. Are they arrogant? Give them an audience. Are they bored? Give them excitement. You become whatever they're missing in their lives. And sex? Patricia asked. Sex is a tool, one tool among many. Sometimes it's the right tool, often it's not. Men who are easily seduced by sex are usually not valuable targets. They're already compromised by their own lack of discipline. The valuable targets are the ones who resist casual seduction. Those are the ones you need to work on psychologically first. Over the following weeks, they practiced scenarios with actors playing targets, dinner dates that started professional and turned intimate, hotel room encounters where targets expected physical favors for information, situations where refusal meant blown covers or endangered assets. Your body is legally, morally, ethically yours, Evelyn repeated in every session. No one can force you to do anything. But strategically, your attractiveness, your ability to make someone want you, that's intelligence currency. The question isn't whether you'll be pressured. The question is whether you'll know how to use that pressure to your advantage. Week 8. The Gray Zone. The session that broke two women started simply enough. You're in Budapest, Evelyn described. You've spent 3 months developing a Hungarian Defense Ministry official. He's passed you good intelligence. Now he wants to take the relationship physical. Says he won't meet you again unless you sleep with him. You believe he's not bluffing. He's hurt, feels used, is withdrawing. Losing him means losing a valuable asset and failing your mission. What do you do? The room was silent. There's no right answer, Evelyn said. Only choices. You can refuse, maintain your boundaries, but lose the asset. You can agree, get the intelligence, but cross a line you may not recover from psychologically. You can try to manipulate him into continuing without physical intimacy, but that requires exceptional skill and might not work. Or you can abort the operation entirely and request reassignment. Which would you do? Susan asked. Evelyn's smile was sad. I did all 4 over the course of my career. Different situations, different choices. The point is, you need to know your limits before you're in the field, not during, before. Because in the moment, when an asset is walking away and you're watching months of work dissolve, you'll be tempted to do things you'll regret. So decide now. Where's your line? That night, 2 women quit the program. One left a note. I thought I could do this. I can't. I'm not strong enough. 8 remained. Week 12. The Mirror Exercise. This was the session Kat never forgot. They were brought into a room with mirrors on every wall, floor to ceiling. No escape from your own reflection. Sit, Evelyn instructed. Look at yourself. Really look. For 30 minutes they sat in silence, staring at their own faces. Then Evelyn spoke. You're looking at your weapon. This face, this body. These are the tools you'll use to extract secrets that save lives. Now tell me, what do you see? Kat stared at her reflection. Shoulder-length dark hair, gray-blue eyes, high cheekbones. The face that had made men stare since she was 13. The face she'd learned to use as both shield and sword. I see a lie, she said quietly. Nobody looking at this face knows what's behind it. They see what they want to see. Exactly. Evelyn moved behind her, spoke to her reflection. Your job is to control what they see.
You make them see attraction when you're calculating. You make them see interest when you're recording. You make them see love when you're executing a mission. The real you, she tapped Kat's shoulder, stays hidden, protected, safe. The face in the mirror is a mask you wear. Never forget that. But Kat would learn, wearing a mask long enough, you forget what your real face looks like. Week 20. Practical application. The final test came in April 1961, 3 weeks before graduation. "You're being deployed," Evelyn announced. "Real target, real operation. This is your final exam. Pass, you graduate and receive overseas posting. Fail, you wash out." Each woman was given a target file. Kat's was marked Subject, Dmitry Volkov. Age, 38. Occupation, Soviet Cultural Attaché, New York City. Real job, GRU Intelligence Officer. Mission, assess vulnerability for recruitment. "You have 4 weeks," Evelyn said. "Establish contact, develop relationship, assess his recruitment potential. Report back with your evaluation and proof of access. Any questions?" "Can we refuse?" Patricia asked. "Yes, but that means automatic program termination." Nobody refused. New York City, May 1961, Metropolitan Museum of Art. Kat had studied the file obsessively. Dmitry Volkov, born Leningrad 1923, father executed in Stalin's purges, mother died in the siege. Joined military intelligence at 20, posted to Berlin, Prague, now New York. Recently divorced, wife returned to Soviet Union with their daughter, couldn't tolerate America. Heavy drinker, showed up at cultural events alone. Vulnerable, the approach needed to seem accidental. Kat knew surveillance would be watching both of them, Soviet counterintelligence watching him, FBI counterintelligence watching her. She chose the Met because Dmitry had a pattern. Every Sunday afternoon, Gallery 301, Russian Imperial Art. He'd stand before the Fabergé eggs for exactly 20 minutes, then move to the icon collection. Kat positioned herself near the icons on a Sunday in late May, wearing a simple dress, no makeup beyond lipstick, hair in a practical ponytail, carrying a worn notebook and a Russian-language art history text. She waited until he entered the gallery, then moved in front of a 14th-century Novgorod icon and began sketching in her notebook, muttering to herself in Russian. The colors in the reproduction are completely wrong. She heard him stop behind her, felt his attention. "You're correct," he said in English. "Photographic reproductions can never capture the gold leaf properly." Kat turned, letting surprise show on her face. "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was speaking out loud." "You speak Russian very well. Are you a student?" "Columbia, Art History Graduate Program. I'm writing my thesis on icon painting techniques." She smiled, slightly embarrassed. "I come here to study the real thing, better than photographs." "Much better." He moved beside her, looking at the icon. "Though the Met's Russian collection is limited. Have you been to Russia to see the great collections there?" "I wish. Maybe someday, if tensions ease. For now, this is all I have." They talked for an hour. Art, history, the tragedy of great masterpieces trapped behind political barriers. Dmitry was educated, passionate about his cultural heritage, clearly lonely. He spoke about missing Leningrad, about the St. Petersburg summers when the sun never set. When the museum announced closing, they walked out together. "Would you," Dmitry hesitated, "would you like to continue this conversation over coffee? There's a cafe nearby, unless that would be inappropriate." Kat seemed to consider this carefully. "My professors would probably say it's inappropriate. You're Soviet diplomatic personnel. I'm an American student." "But," she smiled, "I can't learn about Russian art without talking to Russians." "Where's the cafe?" Over the next 3 weeks, they met 6 times. always in public places, coffee shops, museums, Central Park. Kat played her role perfectly. Earnest graduate student, fascinated by Russian culture, apolitical, just genuinely interested in art and history. She let Dmitri teach her, correct her Russian pronunciation, explain cultural references she pretended not to understand. She learned that Dmitri hated his job, hated the lies, the paranoia, the constant surveillance. He'd wanted to be a historian, not a spy. His marriage had failed because his wife couldn't stand living in America, constantly watched, constantly afraid. His daughter was 9 years old and he hadn't seen her in 8 months. "Do you ever think about defecting?" Kat asked during their 5th meeting. Too direct, she knew immediately. A mistake. Dmitri went very still. "Why would you ask that?" "I'm sorry. You seem so unhappy. I wondered if you'd ever considered just staying, not going back." "That's an incredibly naive question." His voice had gone cold. "Do you know what happens to defectors' families? My daughter would be punished for my choices. My mother's pension would be revoked. My colleagues would be interrogated. I'm not free to just stay, Catherine. None of us are." She'd pushed too hard. The operation was blown. But then Dmitri sighed. "I apologize. That was harsh. You couldn't know." "Yes, I've thought about it. Every Soviet abroad thinks about it. But thinking and doing are different things." Kat saw the opening. "I understand. I'm sorry I asked. It was insensitive." He reached across the table, touched her hand briefly. "No, it was honest. I appreciate honesty. It's rare in my world." That touch, that moment, that's when Kat knew she had him. Not sexually, emotionally. He was starved for genuine human connection. Her final report to Evelyn was clinical. Subject demonstrates high vulnerability for recruitment. Primary leverage, isolation, dissatisfaction with career path, guilt regarding family situation. Secondary leverage, romantic attachment to American contact, asset. Recommends slow play development, build emotional dependence before making pitch. Estimates 70% probability of successful recruitment within 6 months. She graduated at the top of her class. Moscow, September 1961. Sheremetyevo Airport. The Aeroflot flight from New York touched down at 2 p.m. local time. Kat stepped off into Soviet air, cold, even in September, smelling of jet fuel and coal smoke. Her diplomatic passport read, Catherine Morrison, Assistant Cultural Attaché, United States Embassy, Moscow. Her real job? Field operative, CIA Special Activities Division. Thomas Richardson met her at the airport. First Secretary of the Embassy, 52 years old, career diplomat, and CIA Station Chief for Soviet operations. Graying temples, expensive suit, the look of a man who'd spent decades in the trenches of the Cold War. "Welcome to Moscow, Miss Morrison," he said, shaking her hand while his eyes scanned the terminal for watchers. "How was your flight?" "Long," Kat replied, playing the role, "but I'm excited to finally be here." In the embassy car, not bugged, regularly swept, Richardson's demeanor changed. "You did good work in New York. Volkov's attachment to you was noticeable enough that GRU pulled him back to Moscow. They're concerned he's been compromised, which means you did your job a little too well." Kat felt something twist in her stomach. "Is he in danger?" "He's being watched closely. If they determine he's been turned, he'll disappear. If they can't prove it, they'll just keep him under observation." Richardson glanced at her. "Don't develop feelings for assets, Morrison. That's rule 1. They're tools, not friends." "Understood, sir." But she'd already broken that rule, and she knew it. The apartment was on Arbat Street, diplomatic compound, second floor. 2 rooms, Western furniture, bookshelf full of English-language novels, windows overlooking the old city, and bugs everywhere. In the lamps, the electrical outlets, probably the telephone, maybe even the toilet. Assume everything you say and do here is recorded, the embassy security officer told her during the briefing. Don't discuss classified material. Don't say anything you wouldn't say to a KGB officer's face. If you need to communicate sensitive information, come to the embassy. The bubble is clean. The bubble, a plexiglass conference room inside the embassy regularly swept for listening devices where classified conversations happened. Kat nodded, unpacked her suitcase, made tea, sat by the window and looked out at Moscow. The city Dmitri had described in their conversations, the city that was now her hunting ground. That night, alone in the bug department, she stared at the ceiling and thought about what Richardson had said. Don't develop feelings for assets. Too late. She'd liked Dmitri, really liked him. His intelligence, his sadness, his trapped animal awareness of his own cage. She'd gone into the operation thinking she'd be manipulating a Soviet intelligence officer. She'd discovered a human being instead. And that realization terrified her, because it meant Evelyn had been right. Wearing the mask long enough, you forgot where the performance ended, and reality began. Her first assignment came within a week. Colonel Mikhail Sokolov, Richardson said, sliding a file across the conference table in the bubble. Soviet Air Force, liaison to the Defense Ministry, access to Warsaw Pact strategic planning. Age 44, divorced, 2 kids who live with his ex-wife in Kiev. He drinks heavily, shows up at diplomatic receptions alone, has a reputation for appreciating Western culture. Kat opened the file. Sokolov's photograph showed a stern-faced man with colonel's insignia, broad shoulders, the look of a career military officer who'd fought in the Great Patriotic War. What's his vulnerability? Loneliness, Richardson said. Classic story. Devoted his life to the military, wife got tired of being married to a ghost, kids barely know him. He's empty inside and trying to fill it with vodka. We want you to offer him something better. Friendship? Whatever works. Your job is to get close enough that when we're ready to make a recruitment pitch, he'll listen, because he trusts you. Kat studied the photo. Another lonely man, another broken soul, another tool to be used. When do I start? Friday night. British Embassy reception. He'll be there. Your legend is you're interested in Russian military history, particularly the Battle of Stalingrad. He fought there. It's his proudest achievement and deepest trauma. Ask him about it. Men love talking about their war stories, especially to beautiful women who actually listen. The British Embassy was a Baroque mansion in central Moscow, all chandeliers and champagne and diplomatic pretense. Kat wore a navy dress, elegant but not seductive, professional but not cold. Her cover story was solid. Cultural attaché genuinely interested in Soviet history, apolitical, just doing her job. She found Sokolov by the bar, exactly where Richardson predicted he'd be, alone, nursing vodka, watching the crowd with the detachment of a man who'd attended too many of these events. Kat approached with her champagne, stood near him, studied the paintings on the wall. After a calculated 30 seconds, she said in Russian, "Is that supposed to be the Winter Palace? The proportions are completely wrong." Sokolov glanced at her, then at the painting. A slight smile. "You notice that? Most don't." Yes, the artist took liberties. Artistic license or ignorance. Doesn't matter. Either way, the result is a lie. He raised his glass to her slightly. Mikhail Sokolov. And you are? Catherine Morrison, U.S. Embassy, Cultural Division. American, yet you speak Russian like a Muscovite. My grandmother was from St. Petersburg. She made me learn properly. Kat smiled.
Said if I was going to speak her language, I wasn't going to embarrass her with an American accent. Wise woman. He studied her openly. You're young for diplomatic work. Everyone has to start somewhere. I'm hoping this posting helps me understand Russia better. The real Russia, not just what we see in newspapers. The real Russia. Sokolov's laugh was bitter. Good luck finding that. Most Russians don't even know what the real Russia is anymore. An opening. Kat took it. My grandmother used to say that. She left during the Civil War, but she always wondered what the country became after she left. Said she didn't recognize it from what she read in Pravda. She was smart to leave when she did. Sokolov drained his vodka, signaled for another. The Russia she knew died in 1917. What came after? That's something else entirely. They talked for an hour, not about politics, that was too dangerous. About culture, history, the losses of war. Sokolov told her about Stalingrad, about being 19 years old and fighting in the rubble of a dead city, about watching friends die for every block of ruins. You survived, Kat said quietly. That takes strength. No, it takes luck. Strength is what happens after you survive, building a life from the ashes. I'm not sure I ever managed that part. There it was, the vulnerability, the wound he carried. Kat filed it away, kept her face sympathetic. When the reception ended, Sokolov walked her to her car. Would you like to continue this conversation another time? He asked. I know a cafe near Arbat. They make good coffee, and they're used to seeing foreigners. No one will bother us. Kat appeared to consider this. That would be nice. But won't your colleagues wonder why you're meeting with an American? Let them wonder. I'm tired of living my entire life for their approval. They met twice a week for 3 months, always in public places, cafes, parks, museums. Kat played her role perfectly. Interested student of Russian history, apolitical, just genuinely curious about his experiences. She let Sokolov teach her, tell his stories, drink too much while she nursed a single cup of coffee. She learned that he regretted his military career, regretted his failed marriage, regretted not knowing his children, regretted everything except Stalingrad. That was the one pure thing in his life. The one time he'd known exactly who he was and what he was fighting for. Now I push papers for people who were still in diapers when I was bleeding in the snow, he told her one night, very drunk. I plan exercises for a war that will never happen. I write reports no one reads. I attend receptions and smile at people I despise. What's the point, Catherine? What's any of it for? I don't know, Kat said honestly. Maybe there isn't a point. Maybe we just do the best we can with what we're given. That's American optimism talking. Very refreshing. Very naive. He looked at her intently. You should go home before this city breaks you. It breaks everyone, eventually. But Kat was already breaking. Not from Moscow, from the work itself. From pretending to care while actually caring. From the space where the performance ended and genuine emotion began blurring until she couldn't tell them apart anymore. In December, Richardson ordered her to make the recruitment pitch. He's ready, the station chief said. He's emotionally attached to you, dissatisfied with his career, drinking heavily. Classic recruitment profile. We make the offer, money, relocation assistance if things go bad, and most importantly, a sense of purpose. Tell him he can actually make a difference. That's what he's been missing. And if he refuses? Then he'll either report you, which blows your cover and ends your career in Moscow, or he'll walk away and drink himself to death wondering what might have been. Either way, we lose nothing. We're already planning to burn you next year. You're too high profile here. This is your last big operation in Moscow. Make it count.
That night, Kat sat in her bugged apartment and thought about Mikhail Sokolov. War hero. Broken man. About to be offered a choice that would either save him or destroy him. She thought about Dmitry Volkov, somewhere in this city, probably also being pressured by his handlers to do something he didn't want to do. She thought about her mother in Bakersfield, who believed her daughter was working in cultural exchange and would be so proud if she knew the truth. Except the truth was, Kat had become exactly what Evelyn said she'd become. A weapon. Cold, precise, aimed at vulnerable people. She poured herself a drink, American whiskey, smuggled through embassy channels, and toasted her reflection in the window. To masks, she said quietly, knowing someone was listening. And the fools who wear them. The recruitment pitch happened on a Friday night in January 1962. Sokolov had invited her to his apartment. Dangerous for both of them, but he was past caring. Small flat near Sokolniki Park, sparse furniture, walls covered with military photographs, a shrine to the past. He'd cooked beef stroganoff, black bread, pickles, a bottle of Georgian wine. The effort was touching. "I wanted to thank you," he said as they ate, "for listening, for not judging, for being—" He searched for words. "Real. Everyone else in my life is performing. You're the only genuine person I've met in years." Kat felt something twist in her chest, because that was the ultimate irony. She was the biggest performance of all. "Mikhail," she said carefully, "I need to tell you something about who I really am." He set down his fork. "I know who you are." "You do?" Catherine Morrison, Assistant Cultural Attaché. Also, Catherine Morrison, CIA operative working under diplomatic cover. "Yes, I know. I've known since the second time we met." The room tilted. "How?" "Because I'm GRU, Catherine. Military intelligence. Did you really think we wouldn't identify you? We have your photo in every embassy security file. American female operative, age 24, likely SIREN Program graduate, to be monitored closely." Kat's hand went instinctively to the small knife hidden in her purse. Training kicking in, threat assessment, exit routes. Sokolov laughed, sad, tired. "Relax. If I was going to arrest you, you'd already be in Lubyanka. We're both just doing our jobs. The question is, why are you telling me now?" She made a decision, maybe the worst decision of her career, maybe the most honest thing she'd ever done. "Because I was ordered to recruit you, to offer you money, protection, a chance to defect if things go bad, to make you an asset, but She stopped. "I don't want to do that to you. You've been hurt enough." Sokolov stared at her for a long moment. Then he poured more wine. "Do you know why I kept meeting with you even after I knew what you were?" "No." "Because I liked you. Really liked you. Not the performance, I knew that was fake, but underneath it, I saw someone just as trapped as I am. Someone playing a role they didn't choose, trying to survive in a world that wants to use them." He raised his glass. "So here's my counter-offer. We both walk away. You tell your handlers I refused recruitment, was offended, cut contact. I tell mine you were obvious and clumsy. No threat. We both get to keep pretending we're good at our jobs, and we both get to stop hurting each other." Kat looked at him. Really looked. Saw the exhaustion, the decency beneath the uniform, the refusal to let this war turn him into something monstrous. "Deal," she whispered. They finished the meal, talked about music, books, anything but the world outside that apartment. When she left, Sokolov walked her to the door. "Thank you," he said, "for not going through with it, for choosing to be human instead of operational."
I don't know if I'll keep choosing that, Kat admitted. This is what I signed up for. Then you signed up for the wrong thing. He kissed her forehead, paternal, protective. Go home, Catherine. Back to America, before this work kills whatever's left of your soul. She walked back to her apartment through snow, knowing she'd just failed her mission and committed possible career suicide, and knowing that for the first time in 18 months, she'd done the right thing. Richardson was furious. "You had him!" the station chief shouted in the bubble. 6 months of work, perfect positioning, and you didn't make the pitch? What the hell happened? He knew I was agency, Kat said flatly. Has known for months. Was testing me. I walked into a counterintelligence op. This was partially true. The lie she'd prepared on the walk home. Richardson swore creatively. Did you compromise other operations, other personnel? No, sir, I was careful. He's GRU, but not focused on counterintelligence. Military side, different concerns. You're done in Moscow. Richardson's voice was cold. You're burned, even if he doesn't officially report you. Pack your things. You're on the next flight to DC for debrief. They'll decide if you get reassigned or terminated from the program. Kat nodded, felt something almost like relief, but fate had other plans. 2 days before her scheduled departure, there was a knock on her apartment door at 2 a.m. Kat answered with a pistol in her robe pocket, another thing siren training had taught her. Standing in the hallway, Dmitry Volkov, the man from New York, the asset she'd developed and lost, looking thinner, older, more haunted than she remembered. I need to defect, he said in English. Right now. Tonight, and I need your help. Kat pulled him inside, checked the hallway, closed the door. What happened? They know. Dmitry was shaking. GRU counterintelligence knows about New York, knows I was in contact with you, knows I gave information to what I thought was an American student. They're planning to arrest me tomorrow morning. I have maybe 6 hours. How did you find me? I've known where you were for months, kept tabs on you. Couldn't contact you, too dangerous. But now I have no choice. You're CIA. You can help me defect, please. Kat's mind raced. This wasn't procedure. Defections required planning, coordination, approval from multiple levels. Walk-ins were treated with extreme suspicion. Often they were plants designed to compromise CIA operations. But if he was genuine and she turned him away, he'd be executed by morning. What proof do you have that you're legitimate? She asked. I have documents. Defense Ministry communications. Proof that GRU has penetrated 3 of your Moscow embassy personnel. Names, dates, methods. I've been collecting insurance for years in case something like this happened. He pulled a manila envelope from inside his coat. This is just a sample. I have more hidden, enough to buy my life. Kat opened the envelope, looked at the documents, classified communications, embassy personnel files with annotations in Russian, photographs of dead drops. If this was real, it was a counterintelligence nightmare. And a massive intelligence coup. I need to take you to the embassy. No! Dmitry grabbed her arm. If I go there, I'll disappear into your system. Months of interrogation, psychological evaluation, suspicion. I'll be imprisoned either way. I want different terms. What terms? I'll give you the intelligence, all of it. In exchange, I want you to help me get out of Soviet Union entirely. Not to America, somewhere neutral. Where I can disappear, where my daughter might eventually join me. I can't authorize that. I'm not station chief. Then don't ask authorization. Just help me. Please. His eyes met hers. In New York, you asked if I'd ever thought about defecting. This is me finally answering. Yes, I have. And I'm choosing now
and I'm choosing you to help me do it. Kat made another catastrophic decision. Go to this address. She scribbled on a piece of paper, a safe house location she'd memorized during training. It's an apartment we use for emergencies. No one's there now. Wait for me. Don't answer the door for anyone but me. I'll figure something out. Dmitri took the paper, squeezed her hand. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. I might get us both killed. Kat went to the embassy at 3 a.m. and woke Richardson. She didn't tell him about Dmitri. Instead, I need immediate extraction from Moscow, tonight. I've been compromised. GRU knows who I am, planning arrest tomorrow. I need emergency evacuation protocol. Richardson's eyes narrowed. How do you know this? Asset I'd been developing contacted me, warned me, said I had 6 hours maximum. Did this asset want to defect? Irrelevant. I need out. Now. Richardson made calls. Within an hour, Kat had authorization for emergency extraction. A car would take her to the Finnish border at dawn, diplomatic plates, legal immunity. She'd cross into Finland, fly to Stockholm, then home. What about my apartment, my things? Leave them. We'll handle cleanup. You just need to get out alive. Car leaves in 2 hours. Be ready. Kat went back to her apartment, packed a single bag, left everything else. Then she went to the safe house. Dmitri was waiting, terrified. I'm getting out tonight, Kat said. You're coming with me. How? Diplomatic car. I'll hide you in the trunk. We cross the Finnish border. You get out before inspection, make your own way to Helsinki. From there, you're on your own. I can't help you beyond the border. That's all I need. Give me a head start and I can disappear. You'll also need money. Kat pulled out an envelope, emergency cash, American dollars, kept for exactly this kind of situation. 5,000. It's all I have. Use it carefully. Why are you helping me? Dmitri asked. You barely know me. We had coffee in New York. This could destroy your career. Kat thought about her answer, about all the reasons, practical, operational, emotional. Because someone chose to be human to me yesterday, she finally said, and I'm passing it forward. The border crossing happened at dawn. The diplomatic car, a black Chrysler with embassy plates, rolled up to the Soviet-Finnish checkpoint. The driver was agency, knew the protocol, handed over the paperwork. In the trunk, Dmitri held his breath. Kat sat in the back seat, heart pounding, face calm. If they searched the car, if they found him, she'd claim he was a kidnapping victim, that he'd forced his way in. Might work. Probably wouldn't. The border guard reviewed the documents, looked at Kat, looked at the driver. You are leaving because? Official recall, security concerns. My embassy authorized immediate departure. The guard called someone, long conversation in Russian. Kat's Russian was good enough to understand. They were checking her diplomatic status, verifying the story. 5 minutes. 10. Then, stamps on the passport. Gate opening. They drove through. 2 miles past the border, Kat knocked on the trunk. The car pulled over. Dmitri climbed out, looked at her through the window. Thank you, he said, for everything. I hope we meet again in a better world. Good luck, Kat replied. The car drove away. She watched him disappear in the rearview mirror, a silhouette on a Finnish road, walking toward whatever came next. She'd just helped a Soviet intelligence officer defect, committed a dozen violations of protocol, possibly betrayed her country, or possibly saved a life and struck a blow for basic human decency. She didn't know anymore. Didn't know if there was a difference. Washington, D.C., February 1962, CIA Headquarters, Langley. The debriefing lasted 3 days. They questioned every decision, every meeting, every conversation. Wanted to know why Sokolov hadn't been recruited, why she'd burned her cover with a confession, why she'd requested emergency extraction. Kat stuck to her story. Counterintelligence trap, compromise, necessary evacuation.
She didn't mention Dmitri. The documents he'd given her, she'd hidden before leaving Moscow, too dangerous to transport across the border. She'd memorized what she could, destroyed the rest. If Dmitri made it out alive, if he actually had the intelligence he'd claimed, maybe she'd done something valuable. If not, she'd just helped an enemy agent escape. On the third day, Evelyn Cross entered the interrogation room. "Leave us," she told the other questioners. Alone, Evelyn studied Kat for a long moment. "You're lying," she said flatly. "Not about Sokolov, that story checks out enough, but about something else. Something happened in Moscow that you're not telling us." Kat said nothing. "I'm not going to push," Evelyn continued, "because whatever you're hiding it for a reason. And I trust your judgment more than I trust bureaucratic protocol. So here's what's going to happen. You're being reassigned, not terminated. Your work in New York was too good for that. But you're burned in Moscow, possibly in the entire Eastern Bloc. So we're sending you somewhere else." "Where?" "Budapest. Hungarian uprising was 5 years ago, but the situation's still unstable. Lots of officials looking for exit strategies, lots of Soviet personnel stationed there who are vulnerable to recruitment. It's dangerous, but you've proven you can handle danger." "When do I leave?" 2 weeks. Take some time off first. Visit your mother. Decompress. You look like you've been through hell." Kat nodded, felt the weight of 3 days of lying pressing down on her. "Evelyn," she said carefully, "in SIREN training you said we'd always be in control, that we'd decide our limits, but in the field, it's not that simple, is it?" Evelyn's expression softened slightly. "No, it's not. In the field, everything's ambiguous. Lines blur. You'll be asked to do things that seemed impossible during training, and you'll discover capabilities, both good and bad, that you didn't know you had." She paused. "The question is, can you live with who you're becoming? I don't know. Then Budapest will answer that question, one way or another." Kat went home to Bakersfield for a week. Her mother cried when she saw her. "You're so thin. They're not feeding you properly in Russia?" "Different food, Mom. I'm fine." They spent the week doing ordinary things, grocery shopping, watching TV, sitting on the porch drinking iced tea. Her stepfather was in rehab, court-ordered after his 3rd DUI. The house was peaceful without him. "I'm proud of you," Dorothy said one evening. "Working for the State Department, seeing the world, making something of yourself." "Thanks, Mom. But you look sad, honey. What's wrong?" "Just tired. The work is harder than I expected." "Can you tell me about it?" Kat thought about what she could say. About training to seduce enemy agents, about Sokolov's kindness, about Dmitri in the trunk of a car, about losing track of where the performance ended and the person began. "No," she said, "I can't." Her mother hugged her. "Then I won't ask. Just promise me you'll be careful. Whatever you're really doing over there, be careful. I promise." It was the last time Kat would see her mother for 7 years. Budapest, Hungary, March 1962. The city still bore scars from 1956, bullet holes in buildings, memorials to the uprising, Soviet tanks on certain street corners just in case anyone forgot who was in control now. Kat's cover was the same, Cultural Attaché, U.S. Embassy. Her real job, identify vulnerable Hungarian or Soviet personnel for recruitment. The station chief here was different from Richardson, a woman named Patricia Caldwell, 50s, career agency, no patience for incompetence. "You're getting a reputation," Caldwell told her during the first briefing. "The woman who breaks rules and gets away with it. Some people think you're brilliant. Others think you're a loose cannon. I don't care which you are, as long as you get results. Clear?" "Clear." "Good. Your first target is Major Sergei Petrov, KGB, stationed here to monitor Hungarian intelligence. Age 36, married, 2 kids back in Moscow. He's been flagged as potentially vulnerable, Drinking problem, depression, making comments about wanting out. Your job is to assess whether he's genuinely recruitable or just a provocateur trying to identify American agents. Another lonely, broken man. Another assignment to become whatever he needed. Kat took the file. When do I start? Tonight. Reception at the Hungarian Parliament. He'll be there. Work your magic. But Budapest was where everything changed. Kat met Sergei Petrov at the reception, struck up conversation, used all her training, and realized within 30 minutes he wasn't vulnerable. He was hunting. He was KGB counterintelligence. Everything in his file was bait. The depression, the drinking, the comments about wanting out, all carefully constructed theater designed to identify American operatives who'd approach him. And Kat had walked right into it. She extracted herself from the conversation, reported to Caldwell, "It's a trap. Petrov's running a false flag operation. Recommend we burn him as useless and move on." Caldwell was impressed. "You spotted that quickly. Good instincts." But 3 days later, Petrov approached Kat at a cafe. "I know you're CIA," he said quietly in Russian, sitting down without invitation. "I know you identified my operation. Very impressive. That's why I wanted to meet you properly." Kat's hand moved toward her purse and the pistol inside. "Relax," Petrov said. "I'm not here to arrest you. I'm here to propose a deal." "What kind of deal?" "I run counterintelligence operations to identify American agents. You run recruitment operations to identify vulnerable Soviets. We're enemies, professionally. But personally?" He smiled. "I think we could help each other. Information exchange. You tell me which of your operations I should ignore. I tell you which of my agents are genuine versus plants. We both look successful to our superiors. We both survive longer in this insane business." "That's called treason." "No, that's called pragmatism. The Cold War is going to last decades. We're both going to be in it for the long haul. We can either destroy each other or we can manage the conflict. Make it less deadly, fewer casualties on both sides." Kat stared at him. This was either the most brilliant proposal she'd ever heard or the most elaborate trap. "How do I know you're serious?" Petrov slid a folder across the table. "There's a Hungarian intelligence officer named Laszlo Kovacs. One of your colleagues is trying to recruit him. It won't work. Kovacs is loyal, and he's already reported the approach to his superiors. Your colleague is walking into an arrest. Stop her. That's my proof of good faith." Kat opened the folder, saw surveillance photos of Patricia Caldwell, her own station chief, meeting with someone in a park. "Caldwell's been trying to flip Kovacs for 3 months, Kat said slowly, "and she'll be arrested next week unless you warn her. Do that, and we'll talk again about a more permanent arrangement." He left cash for his coffee and walked away. Kat sat with the folder and another impossible decision. She warned Caldwell. "There's a KGB officer named Petrov," Kat said in the embassy bubble. "He approached me with intelligence, says your Kovacs operation is blown, says arrest is imminent." Caldwell's face went pale. "How does he know?" "Because he's counterintelligence, running his own operations. He gave me this as a warning." She slid the folder across the table. Caldwell looked through it. "Why would KGB warn us? What does he want?" "To establish a back-channel communication line, off the books. He's proposing information exchange. We both get to look successful. Neither side loses too many assets." "That's treason." "Or it's intelligence management, depending on your perspective." Caldwell was silent for a long time. Then, "Did you verify his information?" "I'm having it checked now through independent sources. Should know within 24 hours. The verification came back positive.
Kovac had reported Caldwell's approach. Hungarian security was planning arrest for the following Tuesday. Caldwell aborted the operation, closed contact with Kovac, avoided arrest, and called Kat back to the bubble. "Petrov was right," Caldwell said, "which means he's either a genuine defector in place or he's running the most sophisticated double game I've ever seen. Either way, we need to develop this carefully." "Are you authorizing me to maintain contact?" "I'm not authorizing anything officially, but if you happen to run into Petrov again, and if you happen to have conversations that prove mutually beneficial, I'm not going to stop you. Clear? Clear?" This was how it started, the thing that would define the rest of Kat's life. She met with Petrov again, then again, started exchanging information. Small things at first, which operations were doomed, which agents were plants, which intelligence was disinformation versus genuine. Over months, the relationship deepened. They started sharing real intelligence. Petrov warned Kat about KGB operations targeting American personnel. Kat warned Petrov about CIA operations that would cause diplomatic incidents if they succeeded. They were managing the Cold War, making it less deadly, ensuring that the espionage game didn't escalate into actual war. And somewhere in that process, they stopped being enemies and became something else entirely. December 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis aftermath. The world had come within hours of nuclear war. Kennedy and Khrushchev had played chicken with humanity's survival. Now both sides were reassessing, recalibrating, realizing how close they'd come to annihilation. Kat and Petrov met in a safe location, a church crypt in Buda, ancient and private. "We could have died last month," Petrov said quietly. "All of us. For what? Political posturing, ideological purity, the stupidity of old men who'll never fight their own wars." "We're still here," Kat replied. "For now. But next time? Who knows if we'll be lucky again." He looked at her directly. "I don't want to die for this. I don't want my children to die for this. And I don't think you do either." "What are you proposing?" "Real cooperation, not just information exchange. Active sabotage of dangerous operations on both sides. If your side plans something that risks escalation, I'll stop it. If my side does the same, you stop it. We become safety valves. We prevent the next Cuban Missile Crisis." "That's beyond treason. I don't even know what that is." "That's choosing human survival over national loyalty. That's deciding that preventing nuclear war matters more than winning the Cold War." Petrov's voice was intense. "Catherine, we have access. We have knowledge. We could actually make a difference. Stop the insanity before it goes too far." Kat thought about this, about what Evelyn had said. "You'll discover capabilities you didn't know you had." About Sokolov's warning. "This work will kill whatever's left of your soul." "If we do this," she said slowly, "we can never go back. We'll be traitors to both sides. If either discovers what we're doing, we're dead." "I know." "And we'll need insurance, compromat, evidence on both sides. If they catch us, we threaten to release everything. Mutually assured destruction, personal addition." "Already thought of that." Petrov pulled out a small camera. "I've been documenting my side's operations, classified communications, evidence of illegal activities. You do the same with yours. We store it somewhere neutral, Swiss bank vault maybe. If we disappear, it goes public automatically." Kat made the decision that would define everything else. "All right, we do this. But we have one rule. No innocent casualties. We only stop operations that risk escalation or civilian death. Everything else,
we let play out. Agreed. They shook hands. Two spies choosing to betray their countries to save the world. Or at least, that's what they told themselves. For the next 3 years, it worked. Kat and Petrov became ghosts in the intelligence machine, sabotaging operations subtly, leaking information strategically, ensuring that dangerous plans failed before they could trigger broader conflicts. They stopped an assassination plot against Khrushchev that would have destabilized Soviet leadership. They prevented CIA from poisoning water supplies in Hanoi. They derailed KGB plans to kidnap American scientists. They intercepted communications that would have caused diplomatic crises. They were making a difference. Real, measurable difference. But they were also falling in love. It happened gradually. Meetings that lasted longer than necessary, conversations that veered personal, the realization that they understood each other in ways no one else could. They were two people trapped in the same cage, working together to bend the bars. By 1965, they weren't just intelligence partners. They were emotionally entangled in ways that terrified them both. "This is dangerous," Kat said one night. They were in a safe house in Vienna, reviewing documents. She'd just caught herself staring at him instead of working. "I know," Petrov replied. He was looking at her the same way. "We can't. We absolutely cannot." "Why not?" "Because if we're compromised, they'll use it against us, both sides. Emotions are leverage. We've stayed alive this long by being cold, calculated, professional. We've stayed alive this long by trusting each other. Maybe that trust can include this. Sergei, I'm in love with you." He said it simply. "Have been for months. Possibly since that first meeting when you spotted my operation. Probably since you chose to trust me despite every reason not to. I know it's tactically unsound. I know it makes us vulnerable. I don't care." Kat felt something crack inside. The walls she'd built, the compartments she'd created, the distance she'd maintained between Catherine Morrison the person and Kat the operative, all of it crumbling. "I'm in love with you too," she whispered, "and it's the worst possible thing that could happen to us." They kissed, and in that moment they crossed the final line. They weren't just traitors to their countries. They were personally committed to each other in ways that would make escape impossible if everything went wrong. It went wrong in January 1966. Kat was in Prague on a routine operation when she got word. Petrov's cover was blown. KGB internal security had discovered his relationship with an American agent. He was being recalled to Moscow for consultation, which meant interrogation, torture, execution. He had maybe 48 hours before they picked him up. Kat made arrangements immediately, emergency extraction protocols, fake documents, money, an escape route through Austria to Switzerland. But when she got to their prearranged emergency meeting point, Petrov had news of his own. "They're on to you too," he said. "CIA counterintelligence has been tracking unusual patterns in our operations. Someone connected the dots. They know there's a leak. They're narrowing it down. You have maybe a week before they identify you." They stood in a Vienna alley, snow falling, the world collapsing around them. "We run," Kat said. "Both of us, right now. Forget extraction protocols. We take what we have and disappear." "Where?" "Both sides will hunt us. CIA and KGB, they'll cooperate to find us. We'll be the only thing they agree on, that we need to be found and killed." "Then we need better insurance." Kat pulled out a key. "Swiss bank vault. I've been storing copies of everything, both sides' operations, classified documents, compromat on senior officials. Enough to destroy careers on both sides if released. We take it with us. That becomes our life insurance policy. They'll still hunt us. Let them. As long as we're alive and holding that information, they can't risk killing us publicly. We'll send proof of what we have. Make it clear, if we disappear mysteriously, everything goes to the press. They'll have to either give us amnesty or accept mutually assured embarrassment. Petrov looked at her. You've been planning this since the day we started working together. I knew it would end this way. I just hoped we'd have more time. They had 36 hours to disappear. They ran. First to Switzerland to collect the insurance documents, then to Austria with fake passports, Canadian identities purchased from a forger in Geneva, then to Canada itself where they went aground. Both CIA and KGB went ballistic. Within a week, both agencies had connected the pattern. 2 operatives, one American and one Soviet, who'd been working together to undermine operations on both sides, who'd stolen classified intelligence, who'd vanished together. The hunt was unprecedented. Actual cooperation between Cold War enemies, joint task force, shared intelligence, bilateral agreement. Find them, bring them back, extract what they know, then handle them permanently. The manhunt lasted 28 years. Toronto, 1966 to 1968. They became Margaret and David Thompson. She worked as a translator. He worked as an accountant. They lived in a modest apartment in a working-class neighborhood, kept to themselves, paid cash for everything, no credit cards, no paper trail. For 2 years it worked. Then they spotted surveillance, a man watching their building. Same man 3 days in a row, professional watcher. They disappeared overnight, left everything, drove to Montreal, became different people. Montreal, 1968 to 1971. Different names now, different jobs, different neighborhood, same routine, invisible, careful, always watching for watchers. Kat learned to cut and dye her own hair. Petrov grew a beard, gained weight deliberately, changed his appearance. They aged themselves with makeup, clothing choices, body language. Looking 15 years older meant being overlooked, but surveillance found them again in 1971. Different watchers, same professional stillness. They ran again. This became the pattern of their lives. Toronto, Montreal, Vancouver, Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Mexico City, Sao Paulo, Buenos Aires, Santiago, Auckland, Sydney, Melbourne. Back to North America. Every 2 to 3 years, moving. New identities, new lives. Always running. The years blurred together. 1975, they were in Denver when the CIA almost caught them. Kat spotted the team because one agent wore shoes wrong for his cover story. Dress shoes with hiking clothes. Detail person's curse. They escaped through a mountain pass, driving through a blizzard with no visibility. 1979. They were in Perth when KGB traced their financial transaction. Petrov noticed the bank teller's nervousness, the subtle signal. They left everything, flew to Indonesia, disappeared into Jakarta's chaos. 1983. They were in Montreal again, dangerous, returning to a previous location, but they'd run out of options when both agencies nearly converged on them simultaneously. They had to hide in the basement of a church for 3 days, no food, rationing water, listening to search teams pass overhead. By 1985, they'd been running for 19 years. Petrov had heart problems, stress, poor diet, constant adrenaline. Kat had chronic anxiety, couldn't sleep without pills, jumped at shadows. "We can't keep doing this," Petrov said one night. They were in Calgary, winter, -30 outside. "I'm 49 years old. I feel 70. This will kill us eventually. We're already dead if we stop," Kat replied. "The moment we stay still long enough for them to find us. Maybe that's better than this. Maybe dying would be restful." "Don't say that. Don't even think it." But she understood. The running had worn them both down to nothing. They were ghosts, existing but not living, surviving but not thriving. 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. They watched on television from a motel room in Reno, saw Germans dancing on the wall, tearing it down with hammers and bare hands, saw the Soviet Empire beginning to crack. Maybe it's over, Petrov said hopefully. The Cold War. Maybe they'll stop hunting us. The Cold War ending doesn't mean our war ends, Kat replied. We betrayed both sides. That doesn't become forgivable just because the wall came down. She was right. 1991. The Soviet Union collapsed. Again, they watched on TV, saw the red flag come down over the Kremlin for the last time, saw Russia emerge from Soviet ashes. Petrov cried, not from joy, from grief. Whatever he'd betrayed, it no longer existed. His sacrifice, their years of running, had been for a world that was now gone. Do you regret it? Kat asked him. I regret everything and nothing. I regret the lives we destroyed, the people who died because of our operations, even the ones we stopped. But I don't regret you. Never you. They'd been together 25 years by then, married in Buenos Aires under false names. Never had children, too dangerous, too unfair to bring a child into their lives. Just two people, clinging to each other in the storm. 1995. They stopped running. Petrov had his third heart attack in Spokane, nearly died in the hospital, was saved by surgery but needed permanent medication, regular care. Running was no longer possible. They settled in a trailer park outside Reno, close enough to medical care, anonymous enough to disappear into the landscape of struggling Americans. Registered under their latest false names, Mary and Stephen Harrison. Kat worked part-time at a library. Petrov went on disability. They lived on the edge of poverty, savings exhausted from decades of running. But they were together. And slowly, very slowly, they stopped expecting the knock on the door at 3 a.m. 2003. A visitor. Woman in her 40s, professional suit, government ID, FBI. Mrs. Harrison, she said at the door. My name is Agent Sarah Chen. I'm with the FBI's counterintelligence division. May I come in? Kat almost ran, instinct, screaming. But Petrov was on oxygen now, couldn't run anymore. And she was 65 years old, too tired to start again. What do you want? To talk. That's all. I'm not here to arrest you. Both agencies stopped actively hunting you in 1997. Priorities shifted. Budgets got cut. Your case file was marked cold. Pursue if opportunity arises. Why are you here then? Because I'm writing a book. Unofficial. Won't be published for decades. About the real history of the Cold War. The operations no one knows about. The people who made a difference. Chen pulled out a folder. I know who you are. Catherine Morrison, Sergei Petrov. The only case in CIA KGB history where operatives from both sides defected together and actually succeeded in staying free. We're not talking to you. I don't need your words. I have the documents. I have the evidence. I know what you did. The operations you stopped, the lives you saved. The Cuban Missile Crisis? There were 3 other incidents just as dangerous that almost triggered war. You stopped 2 of them. India-Pakistan in 1971, you leaked information that prevented that from going nuclear. You saved millions of lives. Literally. Millions. Kat stared at her. We killed people too. We betrayed our countries. We destroyed other agents' lives. Yes, you did. And you've paid for that with 40 years of running. I'm not here to judge. I'm here to tell your story, eventually, after you're gone, so people know someone tried to stop the madness. Chen left a card. If you ever want to talk, call me. No recording, no testimony. Just history. She left. Petrov looked at the card. Should we? No, Kat said. Our story doesn't deserve to be heroic. We were selfish. We chose each other over everything else, and saved millions of lives in the process.
Maybe that's allowed to be both things. Tutov died, heart failure, peacefully, in his sleep. Kat woke up next to him and knew immediately. She called 911, sat with his body until they came, answered questions from paramedics about his medical history. The funeral was small, just her and two neighbors who barely knew them, the trailer park manager who'd always been kind. A grave in a Reno cemetery. Headstone. Stephen Harrison, 1936 to 2011. Beloved husband. Not his real name, not his real birth date. Everything a lie except beloved husband. Kat went home to the trailer alone. First time alone in 45 years. 2011 to 2014, the final years. Kat lived alone in the trailer, visited his grave weekly, read books, watched old movies, remembered. Agent Chen visited occasionally, never pushed, just sat, drank tea, sometimes talked about history. Do you regret it? Chen asked once. That's the question everyone asks. Yes and no. I regret the people we hurt. I don't regret choosing him. I don't regret trying to stop the war. For what it's worth, you did stop it, partially. The Cold War could have gone much worse. It went badly enough. In 2013, Kat started writing. Not a memoir, she destroyed those pages as soon as she wrote them, just processing, trying to understand her own life. She wrote about SIREN training, about Evelyn Cross, who'd turned young women into weapons, about Sokolov, who'd chosen kindness over operational success, about Dmitry Volkov, who'd trusted her and might have survived or might have died, about Petrov, who'd been her enemy and became her entire world. She wrote it all, then burned it all. Some stories weren't meant to be preserved. July 15th, 2014. Kat died, peacefully, in her sleep. The trailer park manager found her 3 days later when mail piled up. Next to her bed, a laptop with encrypted files. The insurance documents she and Petrov had collected 50 years ago, updated over decades. Compromat on officials long retired or dead, but also evidence of operations, of decisions, of the real history of the Cold War. And a note. They taught us to seduce. They never taught us how to stop. Sergei was the only person who ever saw the real me. That's worth more than any country. The encrypted files are insurance. If anyone tries to rewrite history, the truth is here. Password, Steel and Velvet, 1966. Tell the story honestly. We weren't heroes. We were just two people who chose love over loyalty and paid the price. That's all. That's enough. The files were eventually decrypted. Cooperation between CIA and FBI and FSB, unprecedented. What they found. Documentation of 47 operations sabotaged on both sides. Evidence preventing 3 potential nuclear escalations beyond the Cuban Missile Crisis. Proof of dozens of illegal CIA operations. Proof of dozens of illegal KGB operations. Names of compromised officials on both sides. Most critically, lists of SIREN Program participants. Hundreds of women. Recruited, trained, deployed like weapons. Most ended in tragedy. Deceased, psychiatric discharge, terminated, compromised, fate unknown. Only 3 were marked. Defected, presumed alive. Catherine Morrison's file was marked defected 1966 with Soviet counterpart Sergei Petrov. Only confirmed case of mutual bilateral defection in program history. Status,
Both deceased 2011, 2014. No recovery of remains necessary. Case closed. She's buried next to Petrov in the Reno cemetery. Joint gravestone, purchased with the last of their money. Mary Catherine Morrison Harrison, 1938 to 2014. Stephen Sergei Petrov Harrison, 1936 to 2011. They chose love over duty and paid for it with everything, but never regretted the choice. Every year on July 15th, someone leaves flowers, white roses, no card. Agent Chen denies it's her. CIA and FSB both disclaim knowledge, but the flowers keep appearing. Epilogue. The SIREN program officially ended in 1975, discontinued due to ethical concerns and limited operational value. All participants offered counseling, medical support, and the option to resign with full benefits. Most took it. Some couldn't, too damaged by what they'd done, what had been done to them. 3 committed suicide within a year of the program ending. Evelyn Cross retired in 1980, died in 1995. Her own files were found after her death, letters of apology to every woman she'd recruited, unsent, unfinished. Just, "I'm sorry," written over and over on pages and pages. The question of whether SIREN was justified was debated internally for years. Did the intelligence gained justify the human cost? The consensus was no. But by then, hundreds of women had already paid the price. In 2021, a book was published, Sparrows and Sirens, Women as Weapons in the Cold War, by Dr. Sarah Chen, former FBI counterintelligence analyst. It told the stories, anonymized, protected, but honest. The women who'd been recruited, the operations they'd run, the psychological toll, the question of consent when poverty or patriotism were the only options. And one chapter, The Defectors, about 2 people who'd turned espionage into something else, who'd stopped operations on both sides, who'd chosen each other when loyalty demanded they be enemies. It didn't romanticize them, didn't make them heroes, just told the truth. Catherine Morrison and Sergei Petrov were products of their time, Cold War operatives trained to use any means necessary for national security. They were also human beings who chose love over ideology, who tried to prevent nuclear war through betraying both sides, and who spent 48 years running from the consequences. They saved lives. They destroyed lives. They were victims and perpetrators simultaneously. This complexity is uncomfortable. We prefer clear heroes and villains. But the Cold War didn't work that way. Neither did they. The book became a bestseller, won awards, started conversations about ethics in intelligence work, about the use of sexuality as espionage tool, about the cost of eternal conflict. And somewhere in a Reno cemetery, 2 graves sit side by side, covered in flowers that appear mysteriously every July 15th. The woman they called SIREN, and the man who loved her anyway. Their war finally over, their story just beginning to be understood.